All right, in this episode of 51 Vets, we sit down with Jeff Bistrong, who is a partner at HKW. Jeff, would you mind giving an overview about what is HKW? What are you doing there? And then we can rewind a bit on your career path.
Great. Well, first of all, I'm really excited to do this. I respect you've all committed a meaningful portion of your lives to the country's service, and want to thank you. What I've done, I'll tell you how I got here, but I'm now a partner at HKW. We're a middle market private equity firm focused on business services and health and wellness. We're investing out of our fifth fund. We have 15 existing portfolio companies. We've exited 27 others. I joined to help manage that fund, but also to launch a new tech fund, really to focus on highly recurring revenue, software, and other technology deals. So really a new area of focus for us, but we'll raise a new fund.
Awesome. And maybe before we go through your career overview, let's go around the table and get some intros. Tyler, would you mind kicking off?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So Tyler Van Horn, really glad to be here. I am 3 months out from finishing a 20-year Army career. The majority of that was in Special Forces, 12 combat deployments. I'm eager to transition to a finance career and looking for an opportunity to find a way to kind of leverage high pressure leadership and problem solving to help a private equity firm kind of maximize return from their portfolio. So kind of an operating partner type of role. Unique though is I don't have a master's degree, an MBA, or any finance background. So really have to get partnered with the right kind of firm that's willing to kind of coach and mentor someone along and knows how to leverage the leadership experiences I do have.
Awesome. Right. And Matt?
Hey, I'm Matt Archuleta. I just got out of the military after 10 years, got out as an Army Special Forces Green Beret, and I'm a first-year MBA candidate at Yale School of Management. Just finished my first semester, and as I'm being exposed to this whole new world of business, I'm really attracted to private equity and finance in general. So I'm here to just pick your brain and learn as much as I can. So thanks for your time.
Awesome. And Matt, actually, can we adjust your camera just a little bit? There you go. We're getting like down here. All right, Mike.
How's it going? It's a pleasure to be here and meet you. Mike LeRae. I just finished a 20+ year career in the SEAL teams. Retired Master Chief. I do have an MBA, which I got while I was in. I also finished up a 7-month internship over at an independent sponsor that's here locally in Virginia Beach. So I got a little bit of the M&A buy-side exposure. Looking to pursue a career, I was really focused kind of in the business development lane, but now I've expanded into the operating, role as well. Looking geography-wise, somewhere that, that I don't even care about geography anymore at this point. I was looking at Florida or like Texas, a place that is VA friendly, but now I just want to get my foot in the door in order to actually continue to develop the skills that I've learned over the last 6 months, 7 months.
Awesome. So Jeff, kind of with that context, love to turn over to you and to kind of walk through the steps in your career, and then going into maybe, especially on the investment banking route, because it is a kind of a first step often. But love to hear kind of your background.
Yeah, and I didn't follow the traditional path into investment banking either, so that might be helpful. I graduated from a preppy liberal arts college in 1984. Only one student out of that class went into the military. It was actually my roommate who graduated and is dressed whites into the Marines, but definitely not an orientation there. I always kind of believed I missed something valuable. I was a government major. I also studied at University of York in England and got interested in kind of comparative economic development. I did believe I was going to go into government and had accepted to get a graduate degree at the University of Virginia in international relations, probably thinking I'd end up in a foreign service career. But I was advised by a consultant that if I went to get a graduate degree in international relations, I'd end up in academia or some low opportunity government job, and I should go into the private sector. Of course, there was a huge recession in 1984 that I didn't really understand about. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to school now. And I started looking for jobs. I ended up banging nails for the beginning. Eventually got a job working for a subsidiary of Arthur D. Little, a consulting firm that's no longer around. And then I went back and got a joint MBA, MA Chinese Studies, where I studied the PRC's access to the international capital markets. And China's entry into kind of international finance was a new notion back then. And I actually studied with I had two thesis readers. One was Michael Oxenberg, who was banned from China until Deng Xiaoping personally invited him back to China, explain his view on what was going on there, and then became the president's advisor to China. And then the other professor was an international finance professor who would spend 4 days in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where I was in grad school, and 3 days in Singapore advising the big international banks. It was a great experience for me. And I really thought I was going to spend that time on the China side, but I ended up pursuing my future wife back to Boston, and I joined BankBoston, which had a big international presence, but their big international presence was in Latin America. They had 3,000 people in Latin America, and I ended up doing structured deals into Latin America. After my first year, my team had been doing a lot of name lending to big international firms, and I was the bottom guy on the rung. And so they lost a lot of money and they blamed it all on the new guy. So my first review said everything that went wrong in that group was my fault. Needless to say, A, I was shocked, and B, I figured my career was over. But a senior officer, a credit officer, knew what was going on, grabbed me, went around my team to my division exec, rewrote my review. The team ahead of me got demoted, and within a couple of years, I had the most profitable portfolio in the bank, and got the chairman's award as the most junior professional. Part of the reason was I was doing structured deals for companies like General Motors and Ford, et cetera, to try to move money around very complicated legal and regulatory environments in the emerging markets, particularly Latin America, but also some in Asia. It was Glass-Steagall back then, so commercial banks such as BankBoston could not do investment banking, but we could do it internationally. So we were banned domestically, and we formed an emerging markets investment bank, and I started to do these structured deals within the context of that. But then some of the big public companies said, can you help us find joint venture partners to acquire assets overseas? And in particular, Latin America was privatizing a large portion of their telecom sector. So I got hired by the CEO of Comcast, by Verizon's board, et cetera, to lead kind of these structured deals, kind of really semi-M&A deals in Latin America, when I had absolutely no experience or knowledge. In fact, my bank only allowed me to do it because they didn't know what I didn't know. But we did an all right job. Glass-Steagall dropped. We formed a domestic investment bank because what I was doing was profitable. They brought me over to that. We acquired a well-known technology-focused investment bank called Robertson Stevens. I was in that for a few years, kind of sensing that it was going to blow up and that the commercial bank and the investment bank weren't getting along well. And in fact, Robertson Stevens got shut down shortly after I left. I left to head up telecom investment banking for another firm, Tucker Anthony, which had been taken public by a private equity firm. It was listed on the New York Stock Exchange. I was there for a couple of years before that got acquired. And then a bunch of my colleagues said, we want you to come with us to go down to Richmond, Virginia, to meet this firm, Harris Williams, we've never heard of, and that doesn't do technology. And we want to talk about joining them. And I said, that makes absolutely no sense. I'm a tech telecom banker. Virginia's far from Boston. And they're just a generalist firm that I've never heard of. And so I went down there, and we'll talk about this more. It's all about the people, right? So I fell in love with the people. And they were something I didn't think really existed, which was an investment bank who had really smart people, all of whom I liked. And so I joined, and then soon thereafter launched the Technology Investment Banking Group. We grew that from 40 people, the firm, from 40 people to 400 people. We sold the firm to PNC Bank. They let us run it. My group was the only group not based out of Richmond, Virginia. And I had teams in Boston, London, and San Francisco, really focused on doing M&A deals for technology private equity firms. That was the core of our practice. And effectively, over the 18 years I did that, I grew up alongside all of the successful tech private equity firms, and those partners are my friends. And eventually, I said, "Okay, I'm doing this. It's great. I'm highly compensated, but we sold the firm. There's no equity upside. And since I'm involved in helping these private equity guys acquire assets, play a consigliere role to their management teams while they own them, and then helping them exit it, I should probably be on that side of the table." So I left, and then I joined a long-term friend of mine, Ted Kramer, who was running HKW, to again help them out with the existing fund and launch a new technology fund for them. So we're in the early days of that, and it's just been a tremendous amount of fun. But you can tell in my career, I've had to shuck and jive different directions to stay in an upward trajectory, and it's been a lot of fun. I spent a lot of time in the places that I really liked, and the places that I didn't enjoy as much were probably some of those shorter-lived experiences.
Well put. So at Harris Williams for banking, did you say that you grew the whole team grew from 40 to 400 when you were there?
Right. And my group, which didn't exist when I joined, was about 20% of the P&L by the time I left.
And how many people were on the TMT team when you left?
35.
Can you break down the structure of, for example, like the TMT team? How many analysts, how many associates, how many VPs? And then would you mind just kind of giving an overview of what the basic difference is in the function day to day for each of those positions? And then Matt, Mike, and Tyler, over to you guys.
Great. Well, I'd look at it this way. It's really a question of what are the teams that you need to tackle these M&A deals. And so, one, you obviously have a lead managing director, but maybe you have two. Maybe one brings strength in a certain vertical, and the other one brings some other expertise. And then you have a full tier. So effectively, these deal teams tend to be 5 people: a managing director, a director, a VP, an associate, and an analyst. So I'll work up from the bottom. The analyst is straight out of undergrad school. When I joined, we hired exclusively from top tier finance undergrad majors, and we were a highly regarded place to go, and so we were very successful at that. Eventually, we opened it up more broadly to even kids from liberal arts schools, et cetera, when we really knew we could profile the kind of individual we wanted to help them grow. But the job is basically 24/7 for 2 years, where you're doing all of the crunch work, analytical and qualitative, to support these deals. And I'll talk about the criteria I have for hiring people at this level, because it's the same all the way up the chain, but I'll do that in a second. Above them sit the associates. The associates have done something like that. They've either been analysts at banks or had a comparable experience, have gone back to get an MBA, and are graduating from your MBA programs. Sometimes they had some prior experience, and we'll talk about our propensity to hire people that had gone military to MBA and then hire them directly. We were very keen to hire people with that background. Above them are the VPs. The VPs have been an associate for at least a couple of years. And while the associate was overseeing the analysts and making sure that all of the core elements of the deal were getting put together, the VP was more strategic and incorporating the work of the analyst and associate and really playing the quarterback role on the deal. The director probably brought in some vertical expertise, and the managing director had some combination of relationship with the buyer. He sourced the deal in the first place, some industry expertise, deep M&A transaction expertise, all of which you could bring to bear. So that's the chain within a deal. Now, all those same people are focused on doing a number of other things. When I joined, we launched a tech group. So Harris Williams, the generalist firm, had technology capability. But soon, as the private equity world developed rapidly and you had these larger and larger tech private equity firms, that wasn't good enough, and you needed to have sub-vertical expertise. So we ended up building within those same M&A ranks expertise in verticals. We had a fintech team, we had a healthcare IT team, We had a infrastructure software team, et cetera, et cetera. And those were the same people that would tend to work on those deals, but not necessarily. So they would be responsible for market mapping, tracking the companies in the sector, spending time with the private equity firms that like those particular sectors, as well as doing the transaction work. And what we really did is make sure, since we made sure we winnowed out all the B players, the A players that we kept, we were able to swap them out across areas of vertical expertise and across deal teams and across geography to make sure we could always put the best team on the field for any given opportunity.
Awesome.
All right, let me hit the criteria for hiring. It's really simple for me, and it's been my focus for a long time, and I tell people this at every level. The people have to have really good quantitative skills. They really need to be able to model and understand a business. They need to have really good qualitative skills. They need to be able to articulate what's going on with the business and communicate that in the context of the industry and the broader market as a whole. They need to be able to sit down with the CEO and feel really comfortable from an analyst level on. I want to make sure we only have people that are able to present themselves in the firm in the most positive light, and are able to let management team feel like they're being left in good hands, even if they're at a more junior level. They need to be someone who's willing to work 24/7 and just have tremendous pride and effort in terms of delivering what we need to do, and always tends to be very tight timeframes, and they're ready to walk through walls. And lastly, they got to be somebody I want to go out and have a beer with. So pretty much from analyst to managing director, those are my 5 key criteria.
Maybe we could do like a little mock interview for Mike, since you're looking at this on the either private equity or the banking side. And Mike, can you have a little context of like what you're trying to be leveled at? And Jeff, over to you, the two of you guys, and just kind of like the questions you would typically ask and maybe some feedback.
Yeah, okay. Let's kick this off. So kind of the area of the space that I've been targeting is specifically being that I'm a fairly older individual. I have a little bit of experience somewhere else, but I'm also kind of new to the entire financial industry and kind of looking at the the financials and do the analysis. And I know that my competition, even if I do have an MBA, is still well ahead of me when it does come to transaction, the analytics, the modeling skills, the LBO understanding. So I'm trying to sandwich myself in between kind of a senior associate level to a junior VP. I was targeting mainly a kind of the business development lanes because I thought my soft skills complement really well with it versus the transaction side. Or I was also targeting kind of the operating role, not necessarily the operating partner, being that these are seasoned CEOs and individuals that do have a plethora of like a winning record that's tapped into it, but more of somebody that could come in as a chief of staff somewhere or a director of operations under the actual operating partner or CEO that's tapped for it. So then I can learn under that, develop the skills in that industry, whether it's tech or manufacturing, whatever the actual space is, and then grow and then, kind of pivot and work up the track later on, throughout career number 2. So that's kind of a broad generalization of where I've been trying to target and who I've been speaking to, and conducting interviews for kind of those positions.
Great. Well, let me share a few thoughts, and then we can do the mock interview. One is, I think your notion of business development, where it relies less on some of the quantitative bits, that track makes a lot of sense. In terms of the stepping in on the transaction side, I think there's a reasonable approach. You're kind of saying slot in between the associate and the VP. We've often hired people that are very credible, strong skill sets, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge to supervise the people below them in the specific tasks which we're asking them to do. And so we'll bring them in as kind of a senior associate and let them kind of learn on the job with some close leadership from a seasoned VP, and say, hey, when you get your hands around this skill set, then we'll make you a VP, without it necessarily being, hey, I'm starting out at the bottom rung as an associate. And we find that people that have strong business skills and attributes, they're often able to quickly get their head around the specific skills that they need to do this job and are in position to move up rapidly.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to kick it off. And Jordan disappeared, so I just see his wonderful pictures.
Yeah.
There you
absolutely.
go. He's back. All right.
So what I'm gonna back into what I'm effectively telling you all to say, but my question to you first and foremost is, what are the skills, attributes, and experiences you have that you think translate into relevance for this job?
I think a lot of us, so I'm going to speak for the group here, being that it's kind of a group interview, we do come with a strong analytical skill. We are able to assess and understand human capital really well because we do have a background when it comes to management and leadership. Our stress management ability is, I think, top notch, unparalleled towards most people in different industries. We're also quick learners, and that's one of the key attributes that we bring. Is we might not have a skill, but our passion and our attention to detail and our drive to actually make things perfect will allow us to actually learn. And we're all very, very driven individuals. So I think taking those, just some of the soft skills, it applies really well when it comes to whether it's investment bank and private equity or, other lanes within the financial industry.
That's great. But I would. So you hit the skill part, and attributes. I think stress management is a key attribute that your collective experiences give strength to. What about experiences that you think translate into a finance job?
Well, you mentioned one of the things you look for is from the bottom person or the most junior person, the most senior, the ability to sit down with CEOs and feel comfortable and represent well, right? So that's one of the aspects in the finance industry. Many of us have sat in front of generals. I've spoken to presidents. I've spoken to head diplomats. So the level of comfort that we have in engaging people at various levels, to include people that you said likability or the ability to drink a beer with somebody, we're also able to relate to, custodians. It doesn't really matter. We have a wide ranging skills. On the finance side of the house, what does do well? So packaging up kind of a SIM, right? You as a bank on the sell side, you're marketing a company in order to get it and get the best valuation for your clients. What we are able to do is because we do something similar to that with PowerPoint and building up, strategies or documents or plans, we're able to we package it up and we go, hey, this is a service we have, and we sell that to whether it's our senior leadership or it's to an adjacent unit or to the State Department, whoever it is. We're doing essentially the same thing. Is we're trying to actually package up the best attributes of us, put a little bit of marketing in there, and then sell them that plan. And putting that together, I think, relates really well when it comes to actually packaging up SIMs.
I think that's great. And in fact, frankly, I would message that, hey, we need to do deep analytical work to understand many of the things we're doing. We need to do qualitative work. We need to sell. You just as you might be selling a business or selling your services to a private equity firm, we needed to sell our skill set, our approach internally within the military, and then maybe getting some anecdotes around that would be really valuable. And anecdotes are important. When we pitch deals, we have someone be the play-by-play guy, another person be the color guy, jumps in with anecdotal stories that give life to what we're saying. And you want to do that if it's just you interviewing, you want to try to balance those two, answer the straight question and then give an anecdote, which I think is great coming from the military because everyone respects what you all have accomplished, to balance those two things and try to relate your experience to what the finance world might be like. So,
and Jeff, maybe to add on to the industry, Mike, for you, because you guys have done so much intel work, like when it comes to doing an industry section of a pitch, playing up that kind of intel angle of being able to do the research in depth and can do that part of a pitch, for example, or doing the buyer research and knowing how to go 2 or 3 levels deeper into research.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it again, just to translate it, you do deep analytical work. There's tons of great anecdotes you can have. You talked about the CIM. You can easily say how you sell internally within the military. It's a tough sell. The willing to walk through walls is a given. You don't need to spend a lot of time on that one. You did a great job of explaining what's, your interaction with other senior professionals in your field, and that's an easy one. And then probably to go out and have a beer part's probably the easiest part. So what I would really do is try to spend my time on those first two. I think coming out of the military, the most important. Do I have the analytical skills, or can I bring my analytical skills to bear in the context of this job? And can I package those up and communicate those both verbally and in writing in a way that's compelling?
All right.
And Mike, you also have a lot of, you have deal experience on working on
a little bit
portfolio.
Not enough. I want a lot more. I'm hungry.
Right, and the logical question for you is talk about this experience over the past 7 months. What did you take away from it? And
Jesus, the learning curve was phenomenal. It was absolutely a blast, and I lucked out being that it's a small independent sponsor, so it was really intimate. And then they provided me access to a lot of tools to help, refine a lot of the skills that I didn't necessarily come in with, right? The modeling, the Wall Street prep, and then sitting there and just explaining, why some ad backs matter, some don't. Really the assessment and how they view the valuation aspect of it. I couldn't find it in whatever book I read. It didn't explain it. It was very regimented, and seeing actual people where it's kind of an art being applied to that science. What was phenomenal. And then it was the reps. Being exposed to over 60 different companies and looking at the SIMs and trying to analyze it, and then trying to actually weed out the fluff from the investment bank or the broker trying to sell it, and just looking at the nitty gritty based off of their investment criteria and what they're going to need, the cost of capital to their investors because they don't have an actual fund, and understanding how that entire process made sense. And then the competition based off of when we submit IOI, okay, can we make it to management meetings? From management meetings, can we get the actual LOI? LOI, when we're doing the due diligence in that process, how are we going to compete? Because it's not just our analytics, it's also you're competing in a very, very constrained space, and being exposed to that. What other levels of how else can you increase probability in succeeding in a deal? Because you don't make a deal in a year, you don't eat. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a very steep learning curve. And I'm incredibly grateful that I had the opportunity with them. But as most independent sponsors, they're so lean that bringing on other people long term, and especially kind of the trajectory of where I'm looking to go and where I'm looking to fall, don't necessarily meet kind of the baggage that I come with.
Yeah, no, I think everything you say is spot on, and demonstrating your ability to translate that relatively limited experience into an understanding of the industry is compelling. I think what you all have to recognize is you have the maturity, the thought processes, the drive to be super successful in whether it's investment banking or private equity. There's no rocket science here. There's just a fundamental knowledge base that you need to plug. And so I think, again, demonstrating how you've got skills that will let you get quickly synthesize new information and leverage it to be able to do the job, and acknowledging that there's some elements that you're going to need to play catch up on, but demonstrating how you all are your day-to-day is used to dealing with the unexpected and the difficult, and that you're poised and ready to do that. And I think obviously having an MBA is more helpful than not. So Tyler, I think you're going to take a slightly different approach in terms of how you come into the market. And I think that, again, I think you've got all the same attributes everyone else has. You've got to find a way to get those fundamental skills on the finance side. And I think that may be starting, maybe more to find a place where you can fill in some of these kind of core analytical skills, or maybe it's a slightly different position, whether it's more in the business dev side where they're relying less on the analytics.